There we go. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this session. I am very excited about this because we are here with three persons that I admire a lot, and I know that this will be very insightful. So I will briefly introduce each other. Briefly, because you all do so many things that we can't cover it all. But we have here Rahul. He's the founder of Balancing Bits. It's a social enterprise that is transforming waste management through decentralized and sustainable solutions. He's a former IT engineer converted to social entrepreneur. And he left the corporate world in 2017 after, well, witnessing the realities of the waste workers. Since then, he has led Balancing Bits to process over 6,000 tons of waste annually. And he created an amazing initiative, many amazing initiatives in Delhi and around. And he earned the recognition as UNDP Young Changemaker Award. And he is an expert in doing collaboration and partnerships. So we are eager to hear more about how he could do that. We have here Gerry Higgins. He's the founder and managing director of Social Enterprise World Forum, which is a leading platform advancing social enterprises as a force for inclusive and sustainable economies. He is based in Scotland, but he has traveled all around the world, I could say. And he spent over 3 decades fostering ecosystems that empower purpose-driven businesses. Through SEWF, Gerry built a global network of networks, and he's also steward of People on Planet First. And he, I think, himself wrote down many of the social procurement initiatives, not only in Scotland, but in many other countries and policies. There's like Gerry, I think, is like a living encyclopedia on social enterprises and impact ecosystem building, and an amazing chef, I must say, that I had the fortune to visit him this year. And we have Shalabh here, who is the founding CEO of School for Social Entrepreneurs India. He is a passionate, and I highlight passionate because I have lived that educator, mentor, and professional. And he has over 23 years of experience in social entrepreneurship, innovation, and sustainable development. He has mentored more than 150 entrepreneurs, and many of those who have gone through process of innovation and recognition, such as Forbes and the 30 Earthshot Prize. Well, Shalabh is really inspiring, and his coaching style helps social innovators not only grow their ideas into scalable impact, but truly connect with their essence and the purpose. And Shalabh has been a partner since 2017. We have been working together since the very first trip we did to India. So we are very glad that you three are here with us. So thank you so much. And to frame this conversation, we had this program of enterprise and ecosystem. So we have been learning what a social enterprise is, what an ecosystem is, what do we need to develop these ecosystems and create the means that we need for the social system. Right? And on this session, particularly, we want to focus on what is a robust ecosystem and what can we do from our square meter to start building robust impact ecosystem that can help these enterprises only to be born, expand themselves to create impact. So I'll start with
Oh, it seems we lost Jessica.
We don't know what she was about to say. We'll start with. It could have been anything.
I believe she was asking you to kind of address the forum, but I think let's wait for her to join back.
Yeah.
hello. It was like, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Jessica.
Hello.
Faintly.
Yes.
Faintly, yes. Yeah, you're back.
It's like, in the suspense when you get into that part and then just something happens. It's very windy today in my hometown, and the internet connection is crazy. Let me know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, good.
Is
Yes,
it?
we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Oof. Good. So, I'm gonna ask, Gerry, what are the key factors to consider when we want to build an ecosystem?
It's a difficult question because in most of the world, there are emerging ecosystems or partial ecosystems, and in just a small number of places, there are well-developed ecosystems. And sometimes, if we look at the well-developed, we see systems that have taken 20 or 30 years to evolve to their current level. And it's almost impossible if you're at a less developed starting point to envisage how can you manage to get there. But we see from the functioning of mature ecosystems that it's important to consider the relationships between each of the initiatives. And sometimes when governments become involved and become supportive, they only focus on one or two things. And it's by contrasting ecosystems that are very high functioning and work well with others that we can see that there is no point in having a huge social investment initiative as a way to kickstart social enterprise if it isn't accompanied by things like business support, intermediaries to make sure that agencies and enterprises are able to access the investment, social procurement to ensure that the investment is used to grow the ability of social enterprises to become suppliers to government and to businesses. So for me, it's this relationship between the various components of an ecosystem that's really critical. But most of the world does not have sophisticated ecosystems. They've got grassroots efforts and networks, which are hugely important because they're the building blocks. Without that grassroots involvement and a visible ecosystem, when we look at areas like the Middle East and the Arab countries, where governments have tried to become involved, unless there's a grassroots base of connected individuals and organizations, it's very slow to get going. So we look at various elements when we're trying to support an ecosystem, but the first thing is to understand where are things at, how involved are social enterprises on the ground, how connected are they, and what opportunities are they for them to engage with each other and with policymakers. Because definitely when policymakers become involved, it's an accelerator of an ecosystem. And I have a good example from Scotland where I've worked for the last 30 years, if you want, but it's not a 2-minute answer. So Jessica, you guide me as to whether you want me to introduce it.
Good. Thank you so much. I apologize for coming and going, but the internet it's super bad today. I think that's fantastic. We can keep the example for a little later, I think. I want to bring in progress. Sorry. One second. Happens like this, right? Like when you need a good connection, it's the worst day of the month. It's erupting. Yeah, we could. Yeah. So I want to bring Shalabh here and ask him, because one of the very interesting things that we see when we go to India is learn how the Indian impact ecosystem developed. So I want to hear from you, what are the main factors that help India in this case, or at least like northern India, to develop its ecosystem? And I hope I can stay for you the whole answer.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I must say that what I'm going to say is to validate what Gerry has just actually defined how a robust ecosystem is built. Because if I look back, in the last 15 years, how India has done what it's done to build the ecosystem around. In 2013, we got the CSR law where 2% the companies had to put their profits to be able to give it to the not-for-profits. And that really, the availability of capital was such a great enabler. Then in 2015, we got our first national skill development and entrepreneurship policy. Yeah. So I think as Gerry was saying that there is different stakeholders coming together to do their bit to build a robust ecosystem is what makes it really flourish. But India is a very different country and a society and a culture. Historically, we have believed in the art of giving. Yeah, so giving is something which is so natural to all of us that scale of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, it has got the giving has got its purpose with entrepreneurship is how I would put it. The scale of challenges that we have, be it in education, health, livelihoods, inclusion, they have been the testing ground of innovation. Young people like Rahul we have on the call, they began to see how they could be the change makers, not just job seekers. And that's where technology opened up the opportunities for entrepreneurs and people solving problems, combining. I would define, building this ecosystem. But what's beautiful is that, this doesn't come from one place, as I said. Government policy, philanthropy, global partnerships, and community wisdom, all coming together and moving in the same direction is what, defines building this ecosystem. And in this entire journey, organizations, like SSC India and Gerry would know SSC, what it's done in UK and other geographies. When we brought it to India, in fact, 2016, we launched SSC in India. And at that time, for a learning program like ours, whether the country was prepared or not, but I must say that it was embraced by one and everyone. In fact, for the launch of SSC in India, we had a cabinet minister who how government was open to new ideas, new ways of promoting entrepreneurship in the country, being tested, being piloted, and being created. I think that speaks volumes of the way ecosystem has built in this country. In fact, nurturing entrepreneurs is not it's not like a touch and go. You can't have programs, you can't have incubation programs, you can't have just capitalist and capital oriented impact funds which will just provide money and touch and go. You actually need deep engagement models. So SSC, like we have a 9 months learning program. It's a deep engagement model. We actually work on entrepreneurial mindset. I think that is what is another way of looking at building robust ecosystems. What are those players in this ecosystem who hold the hand of the entrepreneur for a time longer than what is just about doling out money? So I think that is how I see how India's ecosystem has evolved. Do we have
Thank you so
Jessica,
much,
or we lost her?
Shalabh. Yes, it's like I'm everywhere now. Yeah, I think that's very interesting and insightful. And since you mentioned Rahul, I will ask him, can you tell us a little bit about the Ecogram case and what are the different actors in the ecosystem that supported you to make that happen? because I feel that Ecogram itself demonstrates in practice a lot of the things that you're saying with CSR, with policies, with a lot of weaving intersectoral collaboration. We can have such projects. So if you can give us a little bit of inspiration about this case that we had the pleasure to visit this year and will probably visit next year.
Thank you, Jessica, for giving me this opportunity to speak to everybody. So just to give you a little background before we directly go to Ecogram, Balancing Bits as an organization, as Jessica introduced, is an organization that works on decentralized waste management models. So we try to process the waste of communities as close to the source as possible, right? So we set up composting unit, biogas plants within the premises of the communities. So we are catering to approximately 15,000 people in the city of Gurgaon, processing approximately 15 tons of waste per day for them. Uh, as part of this initiative, another intervention that we did a couple of years ago is setting up of Ecogram. So Ecogram is an integrated waste management facility where there are three different kind of technologies which are on display to process the kitchen waste or the organic fraction of the waste, and also the dry waste that gets generated out of these communities. So what is unique about Ecogram is that Ecogram brings in all the stakeholders of an impact ecosystem together, right? So there is a involvement from the government. The land which is being provided for setting up this decentralized waste management unit is provided by the government. Then there is a CSR partner, as Shalabh talked in detail about CSR policy in India. So there is a corporate, Hyundai, who has invested into the infrastructure of the Ecogram in setting up that material recovery facility where the dry waste is recovered, or setting up the biogas plant which is used to process the kitchen waste. Then there is an NGO partner who plays an important role of reaching out to the communities and helping them with the IEC activities, awareness building about source segregation and why this kind of waste management is important. So when all these stakeholders play their part, that is when, as in social enterprise, we can focus on operations of Ecogram to ensure that everything is running and is sustainable in terms of financials and also the environmental sustainability. So that way, each stakeholder plays their role to their strength and helps other stakeholder to focus on their strength and deliver the outcome. So that is how the Ecogram model has been functioning.
Thank you so much, Rahul. And I really like this example because sometimes when we talk about impact ecosystems, especially for people that is doing their first steps into this world, it sounds so abstract, so big, so intangible, that this example itself shows us what an impact ecosystem is in practice. So we have the social enterprise that was created with the help of another social enterprise, a corporate, the government, an NGO, and then we have schools that come and learn this facility, and that is very well communicated within the place itself. So it helps us understand that a social impact ecosystem is much more than something like abstract. It's very concrete, and in this case we can see it. And coming back to what a robust impact ecosystem is, I want to go back to Gerry, and from your perspective, given the fact that you probably know many ecosystems around the world and that you're based and you kind of built with other people the Scottish ecosystem. Can you share what do robust ecosystems around the world have in common, and what makes the Scottish one specifically so special? If you want, you can come with the example now. You're mute.
Thank you. And Shalabh mentioned that the Indian ecosystem was maybe rooted in a value of giving. The Scottish social enterprise ecosystem is rooted in a tradition of social justice. I would think that the values behind this are around not having an economy where the GDP grows every year, but the gap between rich and poor increases. this is around social justice. So the first component of the ecosystem back in the 1990s was government support to grow the capacity of the network, the intermediaries that were connecting social enterprises together. And from that, strategy developed, the first ever social enterprise strategy, which was developed by the sector with government. And if I look at today, there's the components of the ecosystem include social procurement, social investment, where there's a good range of social investment, including startup support as well as support for developing and growing organizations. There's a 10-year strategy from 2016 to 2026, and that will be refreshed with another 10-year strategy from 26 to 36, because if you deal with 3-year strategies, you can't really aim for any long-term horizons. You can't look strategically at some of the industries or some of the challenges in your country and work out how social enterprises are going to work with municipalities, governments, and other partners and communities to solve these issues in the long term. But a 10-year strategy gives the ability to set some horizons, and obviously education is also part of the ecosystem in Scotland, with a world-class social enterprise in schools programme, where young people learn about business through the means of establishing social enterprise demonstration initiatives. And the opportunities in social procurement feed the demand for social investment and the market for social investment. And there's a free-to-access business support programme for all social enterprises, where a national contract led by social enterprise support agencies can assist agencies with their marketing plan, their digital strategy, their business plan, or with financial crisis. So it's the harmony that's achieved by all of these parts of the ecosystem working together. And it took 20 years to develop it, has led to a high level of confidence between government and the social enterprise partners. And social enterprise is now sitting at the table when the government works with other agencies and partners and universities and businesses to determine the national economic strategy, because social enterprise is bigger in Scotland than food and drink, the food and drink industry. So all the whiskey, all the salmon, social enterprise is a bigger, it has bigger GVA, gross value added, in the national economy, and therefore has recognition as a significant partner when you're setting your national objectives. It's not perfect, and it's suffering to a degree just now with the economic circumstances, but there's cross-party political support, because all of the government, all of the members of parliament and the political parties recognise that social enterprise, after 20 years of build-up, is a substantial partner in the national economy. So I'm fortunate to live and work in Scotland. I was part of that growth and development. I led some of the social procurement programmes and the business support programmes, and the sitting down with government to co-produce the strategy. A strategy that's produced by government alone without engaging the sector is likely to be very poor, and will even though there might be consultation, a co-production is very different from consultation. Co-production, you can have challenge, and the resulting strategy will probably reflect the opportunities and the challenges more than something which is produced by one party or another. But then there are other countries, Jessica, like Korea, Malaysia, Netherlands, and Quebec in Canada, that have also got very solid ecosystems. Quebec in particular has, for me, the best social economy ecosystem in the world, where the social economy enterprises, social enterprises and cooperatives work in harmony, and they're also a very significant part of the national expenditure and national economic planning of Quebec. So I'll stop talking there and let anyone come back with anything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's very curious, because for us in Latin America, we know very little about what's going on in Scotland. So when I started to engage with you and the CWF, and I started to dig in what's going on in Scotland, I was fascinated about all this progress, and I think we have so much to learn from. And hearing you, Gerry, coming from Scotland, that it's a nation that it's quite small compared to India. What can we give, if you have to give like India one concept or one advice on building ecosystems, what would it be?
I'm generally not good at giving advice. We're quite modest, and we can talk about what we do and welcome people to understand the ecosystem. But really, the cultural adaptation from one cultural and economic location to another is something that is quite difficult. The adaptations are absolutely possible, but the local partner is best to observe and work out how transfer of concept will work into their context, rather than the giving partner of decide what should work. I'm a big critic of the social investment industry because it put out concepts and models of social investment from the UK that were deemed to be world class before they were actually tried and tested, and many of them didn't really work well at home, but they were promoted globally as social impact bonds and these new concepts before they were actually grounded in solid evidence in terms of the long-term change that they could make. So I would really probably say, when you come across stuff which is promoted heavily, be suspicious and do absolute due diligence, and don't accept anything as being as wonderful as it's made out to be, because it probably isn't. And if there's quieter stories that are being more modestly told by practitioners and by people who have a vested interest, that's probably where the gold is.
Thank you so much. That's very insightful. India is such a diverse country and such big in scale and territory. And in that sense, it's very similar to Latin America, because in Latin America, we have many countries, we have different languages, like in India, we have different culture, different ways of working, business models, etc. That's why we have been connecting India and Latin America for so many years, because we find so many similarities. And I want to ask you, Shalabh, in your case, and taking into account what Gerry was sharing about the Scottish ecosystem, what do you see? How do you see the role of the government in India? Are there new policies that are coming in these years, or are there policies that have been working very well that have helped establish the ecosystem? Is there any current plan to develop the impact ecosystem, either at a national scale or at a regional scale? Because I feel that sometimes India and Latin America are very similar in a chaotic way, because we see order in the chaos, and that's quite different sometimes from other countries like Scotland or maybe England that are or look a little bit more structured. So what do you think about that? I hope you're mute, just in case.
Yes.
There we go.
No. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I said before, India, has had his ecosystem develop largely because of the multiple players, including the government. And if we see in the last 10 years, the government has definitely given a boost to the startup ecosystem, the entrepreneurship. In fact, the National Rural Livelihood Mission has taken upon itself the Herculean task of developing entrepreneurs in the rural areas. And I think that has got great impetus in building the entrepreneurship and what we call it as a nano enterprise. So nano enterprises are really getting formed, across the country, and that's only because the way government and its partners in NGOs have taken upon themselves the Herculean task of reaching out to the last mile. Leaving no one behind is what their dictum is. But that itself is not enough. That itself is not sufficient. I think we must recognize that there are multiple players other than the government and just the NGOs that need to come forward, and that's where I mentioned, the importance of corporates stepping in, the importance of um, uh, technology and technology institutes coming in, because what India needs innovation, but India needs innovations that can. We have a population that we need to serve, and we have to serve not in ones and hundreds and thousands. We tackle and we are trying to solve. It's about taking the solution to many. And that is where I think India is trying to do its best, and more with less is what lies with us, and what the world calls as frugal innovation. I think India has mastered it, thanks to the social entrepreneurs, the innovators, the technology entrepreneurs, the government, the impact investors who have in the last 10 years invested a great amount of their time, energy, money in taking these frugal innovations to scale, because that has been solving some of the most complex problems that India is facing. In addition to this, what I would really like to mention is, and that's where you can call me uh, a naive and a philosopher, where I say what really sets us apart is, having a heart. Our heart is in India. It's and what really works is when, I say it very often. It's the head, the heart, and the hands coming together. I think all of the good work that's happening in India is where the heart and the head and the hands, they speak the same language. And thankfully, in the startup mission, the support to the young change makers, to the youth of the country, what we are trying to do, to a very great extent, we have started, combining the head, the heart, and the hands. And I hope that good sense prevails, and we continue to do this, because the time is where we need more of it. We have not done enough yet, and we have much more to achieve. I think I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and much more, I think. It left us all very inspired. Thank you so much, Shalabh, for that. I want to ask you, Rahul, from your perspective as an entrepreneur who kind of receives but also gives a lot to the impact ecosystem, what would you say are the main strengths of the impact ecosystem, based on what you need as a social entrepreneur, and what is lacking? What would you ask to the social impact ecosystem?
Right. So, Jessica, I think Shalabh has covered it very well, that we have a very robust framework here that enables social enterprises. But I think all our weaknesses also are kind of deeply coupled with our strengths, to be very honest. Whereas on the one hand, we have a huge access to the CSR funds, but the problem lies with that how these CSR funds are being utilized, right? The problem lies that most of the focus of the corporates, of the NGOs, is on the projects which are more in form of charity, right? They want projects which are better in photo ops, which can put their name somewhere on the board, rather than focusing on the grassroots level impact, bringing that social change that enables the entire generation or population to be self-enabled for the next decade or years, is something which is lacking. So I think it is about. So we have enough resources in terms of funds. We have a good framework. We have a government that is progressive thinking in that direction. But I think as a country, we are in a transitional phase where we have to put all these things together, align all these things together, so that we can achieve the results which are deeply desired. Another thing that I find can really strengthen the ecosystem, and I think this is not an India problem, this is a worldwide problem, and I would also like to know Gerry's opinion on that, that how does it impact having a legal definition of a social enterprise? Because in India we do not have a legal definition of social enterprise as such. So in terms of the resources that is being extended, taxation, all the policies, so it creates a lot of impact there. So I don't know, I mean, Gerry's a veteran in this, so he must be having idea about the countries where this factor is playing a role, and how it can impact. Other than that, I think one of the critical aspect that we did not talk about in this forum so far is about developing the right workforce to have that mindset and skill set of working in a social enterprise system, because the current education system is primarily focused on corporate jobs, the corporate mindset. So if we really want people, as Shalabh said, that we need heart, head, and hands to work in the same direction, we also need to have the institutions which kind of imbibe these values and skills in the people, so that they look up to the social enterprise ecosystem as something where they can see a career, which currently I see that as a challenge. I mean, people would like to think from either an entirely NGO perspective or from a complete industrial or enterprise or a corporate perspective. So a mindset between these two is required to solve these critical social and environmental problems that we have in the country and in the world as total. And one last thought is that I think there's another problem that I see with the social enterprise ecosystem and in general in the world, is that people are putting a lot of time and energy in rediscovering the wheel. There are solutions, there are approaches, there are well-built frameworks which are being established and implemented by other people. I think what world need is more people who can implement things on ground, and can take it forward to their local economies and local demographies so that it can benefit. So yeah, I mean, that is what my reading of the entire thing has been, and I tried to cover the points which were kind of not discussed in the past in this forum, so that we can further brainstorm on that.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I love what you mentioned lastly. And that's probably the main purpose of why we went to India this year and created this Global Impact Businesses and Ecosystem Forum, because that's what we have been seeing too. Is like, okay, we have this issue in Argentina. Where else has this been solved, right? Is it in India? Is it in the UK? Is it in Uganda? And I really believe that collaboration and connecting each other, well, this webinar itself, right? We have people from all over the place understanding how we can build impact ecosystems and what can we learn from each other. So thank you so much for bringing that. I don't know, Gerry, if you want to comment anything on the legal part, the legal structure. You're mute.
It is a challenge. It's the reason that our global community developed People on Planet First as a verification for social enterprise, because you cannot buy from what you cannot see, what you cannot find, and what you cannot trust. So for businesses or governments or consumers to buy from a social enterprise, you can't just say that you're a social enterprise. It needs to be verifiable in some way or other. So the link I'm posting to People on Planet First contain the details of the 5 standards. They would include for-profit or non-profit social enterprises in an Indian context, as long as they meet the standards. And legal structures, we see a huge difference in countries where there are legal structures for social enterprises and those where there aren't. It's hard to engage with customers and with supporters if you can't verify and if you don't have a way of validating that you are a social enterprise. Legal structures are one way to do it, but very often when new legal structures are introduced, they don't actually solve the problem that they were intended to do. And we have examples around the world of new legal structures that that the government thinks this is going to be the structure that all social enterprises will use, but for various reasons that turns out not to be the case. But we are supporting a whole range of governments to introduce new legal structures for social enterprises around the world, particularly in Africa, where there's a critical absence of legal structures. But sometimes a tax code or a taxation class can be much easier to introduce. A legal structure coming through a parliament can take a long time, but something like a tax code can be done much quicker and can actually determine the same thing. So there's a range of ways to do it. Yeah.
Thank you for that
Thank you,
insight,
Gerry.
Gerry.
Yeah, and I think that's why we also got got so engaged with People on Planet First, because it's so easy to understand, right? It's People on Planet First. That's what we do all around the world. So it makes sense for all of us to try to engage in the movement. I don't know if anyone has any question from the audience here. I'm sure there'll be many questions coming after the recording, because I'm even getting questions on my WhatsApp about this topic right now. So I want to, I'll say it in Spanish just in case. Si alguien tiene alguna pregunta y quiere ponerla en el chat o abrir el micrófono, siéntanse libres de hacerlo. Okay, while we're thinking, I want you, the last round would be, if you have to leave not an advice but a question for the audience, because we have a lot of change makers here from very diverse sectors of the ecosystem trying to create a movement, mostly in our country and beyond. So if you could leave one question that everyone can ask each other in relation to the impact ecosystem, what would it be? And it's a hard one, you can think about it. Whoever has it can go first. Gerry?
I would reflect on the fact that the social enterprise community globally is they hold common values of fairness and social justice, and therefore social enterprises are very generous with their time and their advice when they're engaging with people who are dealing with similar issues. So wherever you are on your social enterprise journey, have you engaged enough globally to work out who's doing similar work and who might have solutions to the issues that you're struggling with? Don't underestimate the ease of connecting with social enterprises in various countries, and the usefulness and the depth of their learning and their willingness to share it. So I would say it really is a very open global community that operates completely different to commercial sector entities where intellectual property is tightly guarded. And to inform your opinions, don't just look in your local region or your local area, but do engage globally to find out what you might learn that might be transferable to your community.
I love that. Thank you so much, Gerry. And I think we have like a live example of that in Taipei. We will deliver a workshop on storytelling with Irma, which is a social entrepreneur from the Philippines living in Australia and runs a social enterprise very similar to MQM, a branding agency. We'll do a workshop on storytelling. And she found me through People on Planet First. And when she was coming to Buenos Aires to just visit and do tourism, we met and we went to visit another People on Planet First social enterprise, and we became friends. Now we are friends. So I think what you're saying is, I completely agree with that, and it's very accessible now with networks and internet. So thank you so much. I love that question. Shalabh or Rahul, who would want to come first? Yeah, Rahul.
I'll go next. So I think there are 2 points that I want the audience to leave with. One is that, see, an essence of social enterprise is to find the right problem around you to solve it, right? And at times, I think we need to have patience. We need to take time to find the right problem, and it is equally important to ask ourselves that whatever solutions that we are devising around that problem, are those the right solution in alignment to our objectives in the longer terms or not? Because at times, in a hurry to solve a problem, we choose a wrong path, and it is okay to pivot and come back to the right path. So as social enterprise, we always have to identify the right problem and also have to see whether the solutioning is in the right direction. Is it aligning with all the social and the environmental objectives that we are trying to achieve? Because I've seen some social enterprises kind of diverting it to a wrong path in the hurry to achieve the objectives. That is one. And the second thing, I think in my entrepreneurial journey, I realize that it is very important that the first break that you get in your entrepreneurial journey actually defines your career, actually defines your entire journey. So everyone out here, whether you are a aspiring entrepreneur or an enabler, uh, I think there should always be a focus that are we in a position to give that first chance or first break to a person or to an enterprise to prove their mettle, to deliver what they want to do. That way, we multiply our community and have more people who can actually bring impact to the ground. So these are the two thoughts that I want the audience to leave with.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Shalabh. And I know you love deep questions.
Oh, well, I'm going to take the cue from Gerry and Rahul and, come up with mine. And I would not, restrict myself to one. But what I would really say is that, you know, if we forget about the whole world where the competition dominates, impact ecosystem actually is where collaboration is the key. So who would you really collaborate with? Make a list of, everyone that you have, you can bring to the paper and with your pen. Who would you collaborate with? I think that should be such an exhaustive list, which is going to really surprise you. So I think that's one. Second, for social entrepreneurs in specific, I think it's very often said it's the 3 A's that should define the solution, as Rahul was mentioning. It's accessibility, availability, and affordability. If you tick box all the 3 A's, you are headed towards the right solution for solving a complex social problem. Yeah. Um, but it's but in all of this, which is one advice that I give to all the social entrepreneurs that I work with, uh, is the art of seeking help. So there are there are people ready to help you, but you should have the courage to ask for help. And it's actually one of my students fellows had said that it is it is a place, so SSC is a place where we learned how to seek help shamelessly. So I'm adding that word shamelessly. And she has done brilliantly well in her with her enterprise. And I think that's something which but it requires a lot of courage, which is a great virtue that an entrepreneur must have. Yeah. So I think I would leave the audience with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's so important to understand who you want to collaborate and work with, because at the end, despite the fact that we can be like sectors, right? Government, investors, incubator, we are all people, and you will do amazing things with those you like. And to prove your point, this is the list we did when we came back from India this year. And the first 2 names are Rahul and Shalabh. So I couldn't agree more with what you are saying. I am validating for sure. And then we have some names that we are also working with. But yeah, that is totally true. And adding to Mariano's question there in the chat, I think we also in Latin America have lot of difficult governments to work with. So at the end, it's all about the people. Who are the people within those governments you really want to work with? Like in our impact board in Tandil, we have the director of environment that it's a friend of us, and he shares the same values and the same vision and the same way of working. So I think at the end, we really need to find each other and do great things together. Thank you so much, the three of you. I am very, very grateful and inspired by this conversation. I'm so sorry about the wind, weird travel with the Wi-Fi. And we will record this session and upload it with subtitles for all of those who couldn't join us here. Thank you so much. We'll share also your details. So if you find people stalking you on LinkedIn, it's our fault. And well, we see each other very, very soon.
Thank you, Jessica.
Great. Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much.
Thank you all. Cheers now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.